The link. The link. What? Which link? Do you mean perhaps the YouTube link? Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Welcome to the
Hey guys.
Nonsensus. There's probably a bit of delay because we're firing across the planet. Like you'd say India, Detroit. That's kind of the opposite ends of the planet.
Yeah.
Maybe not direct opposite to where it's like in the exact placement on the opposite side, but it's the other fucking side of the planet.
Yeah.
So let us not be too ungrateful that there is a bit of a delay. Okay, I'm getting you the link now. Let us not be too ungrateful. Ooh! Do you hear that? There's a bit of a delay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not supposed to. Okay, I'm getting you the link now. Let us not be too ungrateful. Do you hear that? There's a bit of a delay.
Yeah.
That's trippy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I give you. Oh, okay. I have posted it into that. I have posted the link into the chat here. I can also post it to give it to you.
Into the chat here. Where? Chat. Boom. Okay. Let me copy this. Copy. Then send it to my WhatsApp. In the meantime, tell me what's been on your mind.
I just did a stand-up comedy open mic in which I was quite vulnerable at the beginning. I was talking, I said that I don't know if there's a joke in this, but how often do you get to talk to a room full of comedians? Because there's mostly comedians there. A lot of the time, but this time it was very clear that it was like most of the people there were waiting for their turn to. It's a very supportive group. It's a place called Hamtramck, Michigan, which is a very interesting place.
I'm literally going to just like do this and tell people if they want to join. That's hilarious. Hey guys, I'm here with Zachary, and we're doing a podcast. If you guys want to watch the live stream, the link is right here. Just some, influencer stuff.
I commend you for that. I despise saying any sort of self-promotional thing. I've just come to resign to just like, I'm just going to do stuff sometimes on the internet, and if it's observed, then all right. If not, I'm just going to do stuff sometimes on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to I said to this group of comedians that it's like, I have a thing that is a recent like embarrassing failure, and it's all I can think about, and it's around a person too. So I'm like, the thing where you can't stop fucking thinking about someone, and I really don't want to. Like, I want to bore that out of my head, like, but so I was like, I'll come to comedy tonight, and I won't do any material that I'm confident in, because when you bomb as a comedian, when you fail as a comedian, jokes don't work, or you go to an open mic, you just like, they call it eating your own dick, for good reason. That it's when you do that, you just feel bad until you redeem yourself. Usually, bombing at comedy, it's very vulnerable. It's very like, so I was like, I'm just gonna kind of set myself up to fail at this, because then that will take over the mental real estate of the last thing that I'm like upset and embarrassed about. But I ended up doing all right with the things that I was just like trying out. But do you find that like you can only, I find that I can only really ruminate hard about it's usually one thing at a time. And then everything else seems like, because that's how life goes. You always think that the last upsetting thing is like, I'll never get over this, or you just can't stop looping about it. But then some other thing happened, and I always end up being able to laugh at pretty much everything.
Interesting. Who are your favorite comedians?
I mean, it's interesting how Tim Dillon has taken comedy podcasting, just free ranting, and made it such a distinct art form that I want to say that right now, actively, is my favorite funny person on a microphone. But like I haven't seen too much of his stand up, but what I did, I was like, dude, I so much I love Tim Dillon way more when he has an hour and there's no points that he has to hit. I love even the ads on that, like his Blue Chew ads, and it's just so fucking fun.
Express VPN.
Yeah, so and the way he segues into it, we talking about the absolute darkest shit ever, and then just yeah, Express VPN. You know, you want to keep you on have your online privacy. You want. He's so good.
I mean, Tim Dillon is also my favorite comedian. I mean, I think I've been watching him for the last 2 years, more or less. And he is, as you were saying, the ranting thing, he really, really brilliantly executes that. And I really love to listen to all of his rants because what's happening with him is that he's trying to take all of the news, but it's also his opinions that are being articulated. So he's adding humor into the current world situations, something that we really need right now. Given the catastrophes that are happening, we need laughter. We need comedians to be talking about these situations, and he does that in a perfect way. I know that a lot of people would get offended when they listen to Tim Dillon going on his rants, but I think he does a brilliant job just capturing all of those humor and then immersing it into his podcast. Brilliant work. Also, I think I might be able to. I think I would subscribe to his Patreon at some point. They say that.
I'm going to ASAP. Yeah.
How is it?
Oh, I'm going. No, I haven't yet, but I'm going to ASAP. It's just one of those things on my list of like as soon as I can do that. Yeah, because I find myself wanting more. Like I've stopped. I've just paused for a moment in my like super religious, like I need to go to church and listen to the last Sunday Tim Dillon podcast. But I've let two pile up now, but I'm not going to let a single podcast of his I'm going to absorb everything that he does from now unless I see something tapering off. And if it stays this potent and this funny, I am a lifer. I love that man. I love how you'll always think that maybe there's something like the blood isn't even dry yet. And it's like, and as soon as like I hear about something horrible happening in reality in the world, I'm like, is Tim gonna fucking go in on this before the bodies are even cold? And always he does, and always it's like in a way that I think it's usually masterful, like that, because joking about really really horrible things is if you do it badly, then it's I don't personally myself get offended, but that I would say it is offensive to joke about horrible tragedies in which there are, suffering or many deaths, and to suck at it. But if you can do the thing that Tim Dillon does, where you're like really transmuting, like there's people several people have said like Tim Dillon saved my life like during the pandemic, and like I don't know. Actually, but I really do think I would have spiraled way worse if I didn't have welcome to the Tim Dillon show. Just like every time it's just like super, just like, oh, you just drop into that vibe, and it's just like, and I feel like having him in my mental diet so much like has caused me to be in some ways like more overall sarcastic, and then I get around some friends of mine who don't do sarcasm as much. And you can really hurt somebody's feelings when you're totally joking and they think you're not, which is why I try to keep my friend circle like people who know that it's like I'm mostly joking when I speak. And I think it's obvious to tell when I'm not, because there's like when there's like a pressing, we could help make something better sort of situation, I tend to stop joking then, but not always, because it's a really good way to glide through the world. I just find to just be, when you can be lighthearted, to be lighthearted. But like, oh my God, his thing about Ukraine, where he's like, do you look, do you really want to trade your summer for Ukraine? It's like, look, gas prices going up, price of food going up. It's like, can we just drop the sanctions just until for fall and winter? And then he's like, no. Ben says, could it be fall? And he's like, no, man, you got to go to the wineries in October. I'm saying Jan. We wait until Jan to bring the sanctions back. I mean, it's like, and it's and you. I just think with some people who are really masterful with their I mean, it's not always just about being masterful, though. It's about being dedicated. It's like someone needs to do this. Andrew Schultz is another one too, who he doesn't always hit me so much, but like he just went off on the Chris Rock Will Smith thing, because he is very much identifies with the social responsibility of the comedian. To when people are saying, "Oh, you shouldn't joke about that," it's like that's when it's like, no, we're gonna. And if anybody tries to say that anybody being censored or anything like that, then you're getting it, because it's like the gestures are super necessary, and I do believe that. But once again, people who joke about really terrible things and suck at it, it's this fucking shit, you know, like it's just. But yeah, I would say that he's already amongst like my super greats, just because of how much joy. If you just measure favorite comedian by how much joy they've brought me, or I feel like they've brought to the world, Tim.
The comedians save our lives, honestly. Like, and specifically during COVID, I think I would watch Tim Dillon. I would watch Andrew Schultz. Andrew Schultz came up with this entire Netflix thing, right, where he's just like taking all of the events from 2020 and just ranting about it, or like just making some sort of comedy out of it. So I really like the way he does that, which is like, oh yeah, you're on your phone, flip the phone and see what Andrew Schultz is going to talk about. That he did on Instagram, and now he just collected all of those Instagram posts into one document, a documentary, like a special, and put it on Netflix, which was pretty good. I think comedians are very much necessary, just to psychologically speak about it. You know, comedians have a lot of pain that they try to channel through humor, like I don't think there has been ever a comedian who has been through something and hasn't made it, because when you go through some things, you make a joke out of it as a coping mechanism, right? So most of these comedians, and I was like listening to one of those podcasts where they were talking about how much trauma or like sadness and loneliness that these people tend to go through, and they just channel it into their humor, and then it just becomes content, and brilliant content. So it's amazing how this psychology comes into play, and it's been displayed via these comedians. Very, very brilliant execution.
Yeah, yeah, and humor being so subjective and so specific taste is very interesting. Like I was thinking when you were saying, I always try to point this out. Whenever you make a generalization, you are always wrong. Whenever anyone ever made a generalization about anything, it's always 100% wrong. But anyway, you said all comedians, like have pain. And I'm thinking that there's some who are like, there's some like comics who are successful who have a more celebrative tone, that they're like, yeah, but all the ones that I like, I know within 10 seconds of hearing them start talks, like this person has been to hell and back, and Tim for sure, like Tim for sure. And it's but yeah, I'm thinking of somebody like, I don't know, Dane Cook. He has like a very, like, the whole thing is kind of fun, and there's never really like, I want to say never. Every time you make a generalization, you're always wrong. But like, there's been a few who are like, um, their stuff is kind of braggadocious, kind of like I'm having a good life and I'm annoyed by the stupid people. Because I'm annoyed by the stupid people is always like, I mean, that's a big trope in comedy to joke about the people who, and I'd say that's the thing that I don't do so much. My stuff tends to be like, yeah, I think it's fairly obvious always that I'm like trying to talk. There's something that matters to me, and now I'm gonna either encase it in jokes or it's just like nonsense. I had this funny thought, but like at open mics, you definitely get a sense that that you're in a room full of people who have done a lot of thinking and pacing and failing and humbling stuff has happened to them, you know, which makes it really special to get like, I mean, what else do you do other than like group therapy where you get, and like karaoke can be that, and like, you know, musical open mic can be that, but with the stand-up open mic, it's like people just really bare themselves, or they don't, or they have a character, but it like that. Some people do it very much just go into a character, and that's like the only time where they're confident, or the only time where they're actually that like dark is when they're on stage. Then you talk to them and they're a total sweetie, or the other way around. Um, that's a thing. But for the most part, um, I really like the community that I'm going to do comedy with now. Hope you get to experience that soon.
Yeah, also with humor, right? Humor as a coping mechanism. Same goes for art, right? So there's often a saying that when you're heartbroken is when the real art comes out. And that art is beautiful because it's coming from suffering and pain and contemplation about everything, about the good and the bad. And so you channel it into poetry, you channel it into prose, and you're able to write so much more deep, stuff, I would say. And I've been doing that in, last couple of days, and it's been such an immersive experience because I think most of my writings are experiential based, phenomenological. So like whatever I'm experiencing, whatever I'm going through, whatever mental states I am, that's what I'm writing. Because I can of course write distinct academic papers and whatnot. I do that, but when it comes to like poetry or prose or just writing, it has to come from some sort of an experience. It has to stem from some sort of an experience, because then it has this virtuous value. Then it becomes like a valuable entity of human. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, way of articulating your thoughts, but then using it as a mechanism to cope. So art is a mechanism of coping up, but art as a therapy, as a way of coping mechanism. So there's like three things involved in the same triangular. Very interesting stuff. But I remember you wanted to talk about the C3 intelligence model.
I do. I had one thing to respond to what you just said there. Did I lose it though? Fuck a roo. Fuck a doodle doo, man. Hold on. It was special.
It's a joint.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. That if it comes from your direct experience, then that's the thing that makes it, that quells any voice in the head or from the peanut gallery that says that, there's no true creativity because we're always just remixing, that we're
Hmm.
always just, like, and I was thinking about that with like, we have a friend who's a collage artist, Brent. Somebody would say of collage that it's like, visual remixing, and like that's like lesser than what it is to just paint. But it's like, even with paint, like, you're taking shapes and you're making them how you try to arrive at making that shape, and everything ends up being these shapes that like are already all cataloged. You didn't make a fucking new shape, really. I mean, if you're really being abstract, then kinda, but really, like, you have to make this effort to make something that is so weird that it's kind of new. But no, you got colors and you're making shapes. And with the collage, it's like there's enough images now. There's enough digital and cut out like images where it's just as infinitely diverse of a menu as the painter, pretty much. Maybe perhaps a little even more, because like how many paintings do you see where it's like where you see a shape that you're like, I can't, yeah, fuck. I mean, I guess that's a lot of abstract, like complex abstract, but anyway, so if you do it about your direct experience, if you write a song, if you were like in your dialogue of your film or your prose in the novel, like if it's really inspired by your direct experience and the specific nuances of like how your life has been and stuff, then you can tell the voice to shut the fuck up, outside or inside, that's saying that, you know, this is a regurgitation, this is like all this has been done, because it's like you're the only one who can say it as you. And I mean, some of our lives are pretty similar, and you know, we have the concept of being basic, but if you really look into each person, like, people are weird. People are very weird in particular, if you really like get to know them, and the way their lives unfold are too. And just like you'll hear something every so often about somebody, something that they have an aversion or intense liking towards, that's so specific and weird. And so, yeah, basically, I'm just saying it makes it ensures that your art is a unique snowflake if it is really motivated by your direct experience. And the way people experience emotions is so different and weird. It's people will say, you get somebody talking honestly about themselves, and it's so odd sometimes. And I know mine must be to some people too. Like, you ever just like throw in casually the certainty of wholesale annihilation, mortality, you know, that everybody's gonna die, and that the planet is like, no matter what, eventually it's gonna melt, you know, like this physical, our set and setting shall change. And from what I understand, the planet, it does get physically obliterated at some point. It could be billions of years, but it's gonna happen, right?
So, are you talking about evolution, or are you talking about the Earth as it is?
I was just talking about mortality, and the inexorable march of time is going to wash us all away. Like, I'll just say something like that casually to somebody sometimes, and they'll be like, like, I never thought of that. Maybe not like I never thought of that everything is going to end. I feel like most people know that, but I'll just like casually say it as like, you know, when you're thinking about that everything is, you know, the inexorable march of time, and then somebody will be like, whoa, man. And you can tell that there's people who you sometimes I assume that everybody thinks about this and this, and then by speaking in front of new people, sometimes I'll find out that I'm weird to them. You know?
Mm-hmm. I mean, expand more on that though.
On like how that will happen. Like I'll say, like, you know how it's both paradoxically soothing and calming and anxiety relieving, and also the most terrifying thing imaginable, that we exist with the absolute certainty of our decay or destruction, and one day the wholesale annihilation of everything that we observe, i.e., the planet. You know, and then they'll be like, you mean it's like you get calmed down by that? I'll be like, well, yeah, because it means that the etch a sketch is going to shake. It means that the you get to restart the painting from a blank slate. It's like we're all going to be cleaned, and so everything that we do doesn't matter. And sometimes that's sad, but other time that's inspiring and actually really calms me down. It's like, don't worry, this is all temporary, it's all. And they'll be like, I've never thought of that as being calming. That terror, I try not to think about my own death or the certainty of destruction or decay. I don't think about that at all. And you're like the first person who's saying that you're making an argument that it's calming. I've been walking around thinking like everybody knows that, right? Everybody deals with that paradox, right? That it's like it's both like super soothing and calming, and also like can keep you awake at night and give you a panic attack.
I mean, when we go all the way back to the biblical times, right? There was this whole thing called the Ark of Noah, where all of the continents are together, but then all of the continents become different continents according to Bible. And then there's Noah's Ark, which is saving all of these people and animals and everything in the Bible. So it kind of reminds me of, if we are headed towards a dystopic transhumanistic kind of future, then this ark of Noah would be an archetype of how things are going to turn out. Same goes for when you watch the movie Inception, and they show how all of the world's crops and utilities are diminished or are in a detrimental condition. And so that doesn't seem too far away. I mean, give it like what, 50, 60, 80 years, and half of our planet's energy resources would be depleted, water would be so scarce, the entire planet would be overpopulated. And you know what's funny? Aldous Huxley, I guess it was somewhere in the 20th century, gave a lecture in the University of Berkeley and he basically predicted this, that the biggest issue with our planet at the moment is overpopulation. And why is it the biggest issue? It is the biggest issue because we don't have education in most of the countries which are not developed. So I would take the example of India, right? There's way too many people who are in the lower economic class, and if only we are able to give them better education, and also better sex education. I think that's also very necessary, because here in India it's a lot of taboo to even talk about sex. And I'm not saying that in urban areas, but in rural areas, people are quite religious, so they tend to avoid that discussion. So of course they have no idea, and they keep on producing kids and kids and kids. And their rationale is that if I have 5 kids, all these 5 kids are going to work, and so more income is going to come. So that's the rationale that they are using, but they are essentially not raising these 4 kids to be whoever they are, whatever they are. They're just increasing lots and lots of just population. And if we're able to give them education around, of course, sex education, but also, education about Planned Parenthood, maybe, the overpopulation issue would, calm down a bit. I mean, China recently used to have like one child policy. I think I'm not sure whether it is still there or not, but I think countries which are developing and have huge population issues should be able to implement something like that, even though it seems pretty crazy of an argument to only limit it to 1 kid. But then at the same time, us as humanity, we're headed towards, almost every single aspect of our world is going to be inhabited by humans. And so to avoid that, we need Planned Parenthood. We need to know that we only have one person has 1 kid, not like 4 kids, not like 6 kids. I mean, it's not like in 18th, 19th century that this is happening. I mean, now raising a kid is so much. There's so much money involved. You have to like educate the kid. This college, like way too many responsibilities. So why not just raise one or two kids and try to be aware that we need to decrease the population on this planet? Because another thing that keeps on happening is that because of the technological and biomedical advancements, our longevity, our life's expectancy rate has gone all the way up. So we're all living, if there's no cancer, if there's no accidents, a person could generally live up to 80, 85. And it's crazy if they live it to 80, 85. And as this evolution goes on, maybe one day we will be able to live 100 and 120, just because of all of the medical facilities available, and technological advancements. So Aldous Huxley was very right about overpopulation, and this was 1960s when he gave his Berkeley speech. He said brilliant things there. That one of the biggest problem would be overpopulation. And if you read this book by Dan Brown, I guess it's one of his which book is it? One of his, yeah, it's called Origin. And in Origin or in Inferno, I'm not I'm not, I'm confusing both of those. He literally talks about how to control population. This guy goes crazy and kind of like takes a virus and basically just executes it into the water space, so it spreads too fast and people catch this virus and die, because you want to like decrease the overpopulation. And it's crazy that this guy wrote this novel, and boom, 1 year after, 1 or 2 years after, it actually ends up happening in COVID. So it's wild out there.
It is in fact wild out there. Um, I've heard a lot of good pushbacks against that we're overpopulated. I do think that if we distributed things differently, maybe not even distributed is the word. If we realized the potential of cycles of resources and just abided by what is sustainable, then we'd be cool with another fucking 10 billion. Like, but if we're gonna continue as we are right now, then the answer is event. Like I've thought for a long time that it's kind of inevitable that in developed nations at some point that there's at some point that may never be reached, but at some point it would be like, okay, there would need to be like a one child thing, and then that would imagine how much that would be resisted. I mean, I have fucking despised the idea because it's like oh, now you're real, but if as I don't know the answer to a lot of societal like some of our biggest like oncoming problems, because yeah, if we're going to have these massive amounts of people condensed into cities, then there's going to be some moments that necessitate a call being made. I mean, I know some people who aren't complete dullards, like I think they're wrong as fuck, but who actually think that we could have just not, there could have been no government intervention with COVID, and that somehow would have produced acceptable results. I think it's very, very clear that there needed to be, but then there's a very strong argument that a lot of things were really overshot in ways where a lot of carnage was caused economically, and that economic havoc kills. It's like all of the graphs shoot up of all the suicide and the domestic violence and all that, like when people are pinched economically. And so if there could have been less economic debt like that, but it's just by seeing how people reacted to vaccines, to how governments implemented and some mandated the rollout of a vaccine that I think clearly it was like mathematically the thing to do. across math, but I have a friend was vaccine injured, and was like truly like by the vaccine. And it's like you give a thing to millions of people, like billions of people got the vaccine. Then there's gonna be thousands. If you give a million people a sugar pill, then this many of them are gonna have this symptom and that symptom, right? Like, so yeah, these are such hard calls. But anyway, I was saying that like if just by seeing how people reacted to vaccines, like imagine a one-child policy. Imagine how people are gonna fucking react to that around here. And you'll get to come and meet the Americans soon. And man, there are some people here who are fucking intense about you don't tell me what to do. There's people with banners on, like there's people with under their American flag, a flag that just shows an M16, which is a machine gun, a rifle, and it just says it'll say like come and take it, or like something saying I'll shoot you if you try to take my gun. Like just flying a flag saying like, by the way, hello, good morning. I'll shoot you if you try to take my gun. This house is full of guns, and if you try to take them, we'll shoot you. Like, so anyway, it's gonna be a wild reality. There's gonna be some wild pockets in the future. I also think there's gonna be a lot of pockets of peace. You can steer yourself towards them if you'd like. And then there's gonna be some places where chaos erupts, and I don't know. There's some stuff that we're in for, but I'm ultimately optimistic. You are muted. I do not hear you. You are not making sounds. Still no sound. There you are.
What I see in society today is that society works upon disruption, right? There always are going to be people who are going to be against. So when you take the anti-vax example, right? There's always going to be people who are going to be like, huh, because here's the hilarious situation. Back in March of 2020, when the lockdowns were being imposed, everyone was going batshit crazy about, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, vaccines, we need vaccines, and what is the scientific community doing? Why are they not that fast? Boom, the vaccine comes out, and all of a sudden, oh, we're not going to take the vaccines. We're not going to take the same people. We're not going to take the vaccines because it has XYZ components in it, and it's crazy. And you can apply that to everything. Society works on disruption. You always have one is saying, oh yeah, we are all for vaccines. The other side is we're not for the vaccines. And for some reason, these two polar opposites are always the core of how the human condition and human civilization and the way human civilization walks out is implemented.
It's how it seems how we do our troubleshooting. It's how you do your troubleshooting in your head too. There's this whole left-right thing, which is so intense in America right now, and I hear is like just as intense in other places. Not everybody has it so much where it's just a duopoly, like a duopoly of political parties, and just as bifurcated as it can be. But here, that's the case. There's a couple more factions that are starting to really take hold, like the liberals and the left are starting to hate each other. Like you'll hear, I know friends who are like, self-identifying leftists who will be like fucking liberal, fucking, and then the conservatives are starting to separate themselves from like the Trumpies and the neocons but anyway, there's this big like two-team left-right thing. And they get into some interesting arguments, but for the most part, I think it is just this total, I just see it as just this, it's like, I don't know. It sometimes produces the results that it's supposed to. Because anyway, I'm just getting at the result it's supposed to produce having two like equal opposites, and whether inside your own psyche or in the population like this, or on the floors of Congress or the Senate, is that okay? We're gonna try to do something now that is that can be defined as blue team liberal lefty leaning. And now, so it's your job, the conservatives, to be like, oh, no, not too fucking fast, bucko. Like, look, like the world isn't that rosy glasses fucking utopia that you think it's going to be. We need to keep people honest, or they're going to continue to do this, this, and this. And if you just had responsibility, if you just took responsibility for your, that sort of stuff, the things that they always say back, and then when it's the conservatives trying to do something that's very much about like, it's like, okay, we need to hunker down in this way, we need to tighten our belt in this sort of way, we need to put up a fucking wall, then the liberals and the leftists are there to be like, that's so heartless, like that and then they try to make it more less detrimental to the poor, or I mean, ideally, they're trying to supposed to stick up for the poor, and sometimes that produces something where it's like, okay, the first shot, or you don't want to try to even try to get a law across if you know that the conservatives or the liberals are just gonna fucking smack it down, because it's like, nope, that's stupid, and you won't have enough votes for it because it's like, or it seems unrealistic because it's like we have our opposition. We have to not. I would like it more if people considered the opposition and then tried to like work. It would be most ideal if they like, and then they work together to get it to a thing that is like, okay, this reflects more people in the population than if we just like steamroll over the whole other half. But in your head, that looks like a bunch of different, like I'm seeing so clear now the order and chaos thing. Like there's a part of me that wants to make sure of things and make specific plans. There's a part of me that wants things to be consistent and to have like to do what would be necessary to have my like social life be dialed in enough to the point where it's like I'm not just this flailing thing that some people get to know, and that I'm never, and I just like not even keep like. And then there's the side of me that loves things to be chaotic and loves to just fuck shit up, man. And I get to see the interplay of that, and sometimes that results in both lovely and at least annoying and embarrassing things.
I think we need some sort of a awakening. Just by the way, there's people on the chat who are posting things.
Oh, I full screened it so I would be more. Oh yeah, there are. Anonymity. That's cool. As in like Anna, the first name, and then Nimity.
It's like going to spoken word poetry things. I really enjoy stand up in person. Recreational therapy is important, like fire spinning alone is great, but it's together that is magical. Sex education is also important. Yeah, you have brilliant points there, Anna. Thank you so much for those comments. But, hmm,
Population decrease would help humanity, says Alexander Ellis, especially with the rise of AI. I mean, but what are you suggesting? What do you how do you, when people say like we need to depopulate, it's like, how do you suggest we do that in a humane fashion? Are you calling for something? I don't know. I can't. I don't vibe with it, other than what you're saying, which is making people more conscious, especially in the places where people tend to have a shit ton of fucking kids, and that those kids are then in a really suffering, difficult, and usually their labor is indentured. So yeah, bringing sex education and bringing like, and that's more, instead of laying down a law, it's like, it's true that people would have. I mean, the pandemic and the shitty economy in America, I know, has like birth rates are way down.
that's tragic.
Is it? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess. I know. Okay, it sucks if people want to have kids, but yeah, people talk a lot here about how most people can't afford marriage, or like to try to create a family, because and that is horrible. That is so sad. I mean, that's a massive, that's a governmental failing. That is not because it's like a lazy generation. There's people who are working more than their parents did, like working more percent of their waking time in life, and like, yeah, working longer, harder hours, and not being able to get a fucking house to, if you work a ton, you should have a house.
Yeah.
like if you work across a ton across decades, you should get a house that's yours. I think that's a good standard to organize economy around.
Yeah, no. So tell me more about Detroit and Michigan.
Hmm. Well, I mean, those are two big. I'd rather talk about Michigan right now, just because those are two big.
Wait, so I am confused. Is Michigan a city or a state?
Michigan is the state that it looks like a mitten that's tattooed on my flesh. There's
Okay.
another, and then there's there's a thing that's supposed to be the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I did not include that in the tattoo because I haven't spent much time there, and I hear that they refer to us as trolls. The people in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan refer to the people on the Lower Peninsula, the mitten. They call us trolls because we're under the bridge,
Hmm.
and I'm offended by that. So I didn't include them on my tattoo, and I don't consider them to be part of Michigan. Anyway, no, I'd love to go to the UP, the Upper Peninsula is what they call. So Michigan, I think about Michigan as like Lord of the Rings, like Middle Earth, and all the different places like have their own, like Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where University of Michigan is at. That's like Rivendell. It's like the land of the elves, my friend says that Ann Arbor, Michigan is like society bumper bowling. It's like society with bumpers, like where you are like cushions, like you just, yeah. It's just a very it's not like the rest of reality in a lot of ways. There's a lot of places like that in the U.S. where there's the city that is in a bubble of it's just not as gritty. Um, and Detroit is has got the grits. Flint, Michigan is the definition of grit in a lot of ways. And both Detroit and Flint have it in their past of like economic ruin. Like they used to be economic powerhouses because of the auto industry. And then there's like ton of abandoned buildings there. And I just read recently and I thought this number would have changed a lot, but I remember reading like 5 years ago or so that it was the number of abandoned structures in Detroit was like 80,000. And I looked at that recently, and that number was not significantly different. So there's like lots of people call it ruin porn, which is like urban ruins and urban decay that is like beautiful. So people take photographs of like there's like big factories with just wind blowing through them. It's very interesting to go there too. It's very haunting. Um, and Detroit is doing a lot better in in a lot of regards than it was in the 90s and decades prior, but then also there is the factor of that there's a lot of uh depressing and upsetting and unsightly gentrification. How much does that word get said in gentrification?
Where?
Is that something that would get said in India, where they say like, oh, they're gentrifying this part of town? Is that
Not really, not really.
because I think here I think that like the true definition of it, I thought, is that it has to do with people who were the um the like indigenous inhabitants of that place. So like rural indigenous, just like what, like, they're the or people who inhabited there for a while are, the prices go up and they can't afford to live anymore. And then there's this super uh tragic and gross thing where it's like, oh, this side of the city's we're really cleaning it up. We're really making it better. Yet, like, all these people are being pushed out, and just like, fuck it, figure out where to live. So that I mean, that's like the story of the U.S. right now. That's one of people's main people who espouse to be anti-capitalist. Um, that's a part of capitalism that it just straight up sucks. I just always say I'm not the one who like is always like defending capitalism. I think that there's a bunch of things about like you could have restrictions on a bunch of the things that suck about or suck or like planet like destructive, like, you know, the shit where it's like where pollution could like choke the planet out sort of stuff. Like you could nix all that and it would and still call it capitalism. It would be just capitalism with but anyway, the gentrification is like is what's going on in a lot of American cities, cities in the U.S. And Detroit is one of them. And then Flint is, but you know, Flint, you can't just like call a city by the headlines about it. But you know, are you familiar with the Flint water crisis?
Not really. Expand.
Oh, it's terrible. Is there was lead. There was a governor who is no longer governor anymore. Who's many people think should go to prison. Who and I forget how the actual call was made, but like long story short, the water supply was they switched over the the water supply that Flint was getting, and now it had toxic levels of lead in it, and like some people died, some kids got really hurt, like a bunch of people had to like super suffer it out, not being able to bathe or drink clean water. It fucking sucked and continues to suck. It's fucking, and it was really, really this like showing you the underbelly of like just like a really dark side of society thing that it's just like, or what it is to be dependent on systems of resources, because like all these people were living their lives and then all of a sudden the water was poison, you know. So that's so but I'm just, and then I also wanted to say of like if I like to just describe a part. I haven't spent a ton of time in Flint. I've done more than a few events there, like, you know, probably dozen or several over the years, but that's what a lot of people know Flint for. And then there's Grand Rapids, and Grand Rapids is an interesting city. Grand Rapids has some things about it that seem like it's like of the future in a lot of ways, and it's a manageable size. All these cities are of a manageable size. No, Detroit is not of a manageable size. It's fucking huge, but population wise, these are all, you know, there's no like LA or what's the population of Delhi?
Like, I don't even know. There's a lot of people, way a lot of people, because it's the capital, right? And everyone comes there for job opportunities and whatnot. I mean, there's one thing which is Mumbai. Mumbai is filled with all of the people who want to go into film industry or some sort of a business related to that. And then there are people who are going to the national capital region where Delhi is, and surrounding areas, but it's heavily populated. Like the traffic is nuts. So goes for the city called Bangalore. It's the IT city of India. The traffic is horrible. It's horrible. Like you want to go from here, like, I mean, you don't live in India, but I can't really explain. But let's say if I have to go from here to here, right? It's literally gonna take me 1 hour, even though the space between both of them is too small. That's literally how much traffic there is. And Delhi is highly polluted, so like there's a lot of air pollution, of course, if everyone's driving cars with petrol and whatnot. So yeah, another condition here in India is detrimental, and I hope that more reforms are done in are imposed, so we can have, a better, more eco-friendly environment and stuff like that.
Yeah, fucking. There's Los Angeles, LA in the US that there is much complaining of its traffic, and it is quite horrific. But I've heard very very high marks of chaotic and congested traffic situations in Mexico City and Delhi, and I wonder with the pollution if it's like that seems like something that you don't want to bank on it, but it's possible that there ends up being this quick fix, like with the mushrooms that eat the plastic. I'm really hoping, is what I'm saying. I'm not being scientific here. I'm just like, I really hope that we find a way because God, what we do with garbage is wild. Is there, and there's landfills in India too, right?
Oh yeah, a
Mountains
lot
of
of them.
garbage.
Yeah.
Mountains of garbage. I used to work at this haunted attraction, haunted house. You jump out, scare people, the thing, and it it was right by. You could see a landfill in the distance, and it's like that is a mountain of garbage that we are adding to on at a mind-boggling rate. Wow, we're at a time. But maybe it doesn't come to a head. Maybe it just gets so obnoxious that we ourselves are just like, let's not live like this anymore. I wanted to read one of these, one of those Detroit. Why I get because I didn't say anything like positive, like all like the cool positive things of either of those, which I was trying to remark on that. It's like you say like, tell me about Flint, tell me about Detroit, and I want to say all these like, yeah, not bad as it used to be. It's like, oh man, fucking, I want to be able to talk. Anyway, Detroit might be the home of many music genres like electronic music. Searching for Sugar Man is a really interesting documentary to watch. By the way, which a dude who's from Detroit. Who was a carpenter but became famous for the apartheid movement in South Africa. But there is so much to MI. Yeah, Michigan. Searching for Sugar Man is really interesting. But like also Motown is a genre of that is known to be in Michigan. People say Michigander. But yeah, Detroit is like home of techno music. And to be honest, I don't get it, but I go to things live. I'm around a lot of techno music. I like to have a social life, um, and uh, and really cool art scene. Really cool. A person just said the other day, it's like a really great, like, and I really agree with him. He was like, I tell all my friends in New York and LA, it's like, yeah, I get it. You want to be here. This is where the work is at. But if you want to self actualize, come to Detroit. Um, I wanted to. We got a question for you. Can you ask Sanjana what it was like during the pandemic when people were told to stay home? Did people get government assistance, or did they ignore the virus and went to work normally despite the risks? You were in Tel Aviv a lot of the pandemic, but you spent some of it in India, right?
Yeah, so back in March of 2020, I was at four international airports coming back to India because of just a lot of mess. Like I was in Prague and I had to go to Tel Aviv, but when I reached Tel Aviv, they've already closed all of the incoming people into the country. So then I had to fly to Mumbai to get to home. And for international airports, I was like, one of my layovers was in Russia. So, during that time, March of 2020 up till, I would say, March, April, May, 3 months, like, the whole world was shut down. So at that time, can you put that question again here? So I can, everyone stay home. Yeah, so yeah, of course, people were staying home during these 3 months. But then again, after it opened up for economic reasons, and people had to go back to their jobs, and there's upper class, middle class, and lower class, right? In terms of economic value. So people who are in the lower economic standards, they got it absolutely, for the lack of the better word, screwed up, because like most of their income, which they would get from manual labor, was not available to them anymore. So it was very much tragic to them. And the government did support the rural people. I think they gave them substantial amount of money. Some companies here in India also gave some salaries to their employees. But yeah, do they ignore the virus? Yeah. Then after some time, they started to ignore it. But then, um, December 2020 to up till February of 2021. They Everyone was chilly, like everyone was chilling back in December, early December. But then all of a sudden, from December up till February, things got very bad. Like there was a second wave, a lot of people died. Like the place I am currently at, this residential complex, a lot of people died here in these colonies. Like literally, I go out, there's so many families, and a lot of people died, and and people did go to work after, even though people were dying left and right. At least the people who are doing manual labor and cannot afford food for a day if they're not working. So it's been hectic.
Yeah, I remember right at the beginning when the pandemic was just starting, there was some people who predicted, they were like, "You think that the U.S. is getting hit hard with this? Like, wait till this hits places like in India where there's tons of people stacked on top of each other. Like that's where it's and then there was that period of just like where I remember people saying, "Oh, it's really not hitting a lot of places like we thought it was," because the sunshine thing was a big part of that. Remember when there's just like places that where it's sunny and people are outside more often are not getting fucked up that much as like urban places in fall and winter. And and then I remember, man, is almost a positive thing to me that I don't remember. I don't remember the names of the variants anymore. Only Omicron, because that was the last one. What was the one that I got? What did I get? I got a I got a healthy serving of the was it Delta? The one that it seemed like it was most catastrophic across the planet. However, I hear right now actually is it's pretty.
There's B1 and B2 variant of Omicron, which are still there. I mean, you can get infected from that. That's the thing. I was telling you yesterday about the New Yorker cartoon that I saw, right? And it was saying the epidemic has ended. So no, so the epidemic is not being talked about in media anymore. So it might have ended. So yeah, it seems to me that the COVID information, the latest ones, are being suppressed because the other mainstream stories are heightened. So I know that there's B1, B2 because I read a journal and I was like, oh shit, this is really happening. There's another strains on the loose. But you go to any mainstream media, all they want to talk about is, and respectfully so, Russia, Ukraine, and all of these situations. But I think, COVID should also be, given some emphasis because we still haven't fully gotten rid of it. We still haven't vaccinated everyone in the entire planet. Like Africa, I guess, is suffering with the lack of vaccines and whatnot. And in Australia, they're looking for third or fourth boosters. So it's nuts. It's nuts.
People here are done, are largely done. It is like I I was just at the airport the other day. No, this morning. I dropped a person off the airport this morning. Um, and there they brought back the mandate, but there was a period of time where I think that even that for transportation was. But if you go to a grocery store, things now it is so few. And if you talk to somebody now, most Americans that I talk to, regardless of where they are, they're like, most people are like, I can't care anymore. Which it makes me think like, man, what would happen if there was like a really bad one? There's so many things that could go so badly right now, but I don't want to use my imagination in that way. Because I think that has something to do with the actual nature of reality. We were talking about this. Was it just yesterday that we talked? Yeah. That there really are like all of these things that could happen now that could the things could take a turn quickly. But in either direction, I think is what we need to, in order to be like both truthful and also optimistic for the pragmatic potential of what it is to be optimistic, that it actually optimizes reality, or at least allows people to like be most response able, to be optimistic as opposed to just in doom, is that it could take a turn in either direction real fast. It occurs to me, you know, like, and globally. The things like with the mushrooms is one of the really optimistic things that I see. But then also just like, look at how much some of our technological advancements have just like the problems we've been able to alleviate. People used to just die from what now would be considered a minor wound because of infection. And then like now we got this stuff that makes it so that you don't die from infection. Actually, it's
I mean, there's cancer too, right? Like, cancer can be treatable in certain cases. Earlier, cancer patients would just die, but with chemotherapy and all sorts of medications, some people can survive cancer, which is brilliant. I mean, that's the point, right? Like, we're going towards this biomedical technologic evolution process where we are getting these equipments to basically make our lives easier, make us more devoid of neuroses or psychoses or any kind of ailment in the body. And it's what I worry about is that even if we become the cyborgs, let's say we have artificial general intelligence, and there is some sort of transhumanist kind of agenda going on, then what is next? Because we as a human society, we progress. We don't regress. We always progress, and that's the case with technology. Technology always progresses. If it doesn't progress, then like, what are we even doing? But we always move ahead, and so in terms of longevity and how much people are going to live, I think it's going to keep on increasing and increasing and increasing.
I think that there's like, we don't regress with technology, but it does seem obviously predictable that there will be more than just pockets of resistance and wanting to be old fashioned. Like, I think there's going to be new. You're familiar with the Amish? I'm sure that there's groups that are also shun technology, like the Amish and what are the other ones? Damn it. I'll just keep saying Amish. That is the man. Damn it. I lose proper nouns so easily. When something is a proper noun, I just like want to say, the one Mennonites. Yeah. The Amish and the Mennonites are these groups in they're very religious, and they shun technology. So that like still ride horse and buggies, even though they, could totally get a car. Don't want to have a car. And I've heard things about mirrors and lots of like, just very, very traditional way of life. But they also have this thing, Rumspringer, the Amish do, where you get to at some age, when you're coming of age, you get to go off and go jump into the world and use technology and do have, sexually, romantically explore. And then if you want to, you come back and then do the rest of your life the right way. Or you can just go off and not be Amish. But anyway, I'm sure there's groups like that in India too, where like shunning technology on purpose. Like we could get access, but we just don't want to go there. Like, is there groups that do that?
Do you mean in terms of AI systems or just technology as a whole?
Well, that's why I think that's what I was getting at. Why I brought up the Amish and the Mennonites is that that okay, they did that for a while, like with vehicles and stuff, and a toaster oven and a microwave and a laptop. I've heard they are actually able to use power tools as long as it's to make stuff to sell, which is funny. I heard that from somebody who lives in a community that I was in, that like this city in Pennsylvania that is largely populated with Amish people. Anyway, yeah, I think that we're going to have a much more groups and subcultures that are like, not only do I not social media, I don't think these computers are lending to people's lives. So I don't want my kid to have access to these things. I just want us to live in a place where we just like look each other in the eye and stuff. But I'm sure there's also groups that have been doing it for a while in all places in all countries, because there is an argument to be made that it's like, oh, okay, this task is now simple and easy comparatively, but there's something so zen about doing more things by hand. I'm not going to opt to do that. But there's some things where it is, where there's some things where it's like there's something zen about sweeping the floor,
I mean, you were talking about parenting before. Something that worries me a lot is we're headed towards a place where there's going to be kids. I mean, kids to come, next generation. How is parenting going to look like? In the future, because these kids already have iPhones as soon as they're born at this point, and they're just free to surf into any kind of social media, any kind of website, and they can go through all of those things that a kid shouldn't at a particular age. So it makes me wonder exactly how the parenting style would change in the future, because it's definitely going to be hard, especially given the factor that we're so immersed with the cybernetic technologies at this point. What do you think? Like, how is it? How does parenting going to look like in the future?
Well, I have some specific predictions. I think that more and more people are going to want to delay their child's psyche interfacing with social media platforms. Like they're going to want to delay that as long as possible. I think that just more and more data is going to come out that it's like this is ruining your neurochemistry. It's sad to see, because I'm better than I have been at points, but it's ruinous to my ability to enjoy my life. So but it's this trade-off also, because like here we are, we met via Clubhouse, like so much good comes out. What are we doing right now? It's like I'm enjoying myself. And but in a lot of ways, particularly I think that it's the counting of the people. It's the likes and stuff, but it's the counting. It's a thing that doesn't happen without it, where it's like where you said something and 72 friends. I mean, over 30, it's getting obnoxious. How many times you just sit at a table and there's 40 people who absorb your utterances, especially when it's just these fucking like this stuff that rolls off one's brain. And then to look and see 82 people like me enough to either gesture that they liked a thing or they actually really liked what I said, which means I really should say something else good because that felt good for both of us. Like that getting into that loop is like, it's fucking detrimental for what it is to wake up and get your dopamine from, I guess, cleaner sources, but also who am I to fucking judge it? If you're because dude, there's people who have it brings so much joy to their life that has people. I know I've talked to people who are bedridden, talked to some people with some really particular health situations on Clubhouse who it's like, whoa, it's so great that you get to have this super immersive and supportive social life via this thing. I mean, I love the interface of Clubhouse, but also you go into some of those rooms, man, that I'm sort of like that, 10x your life sort of shit. And it is like humanity, holy shit. Or just like, I mean, again, no judgment, but just anything where people are trying to accumulate numbers in a social way. I I hate what it's done to me. And I get it. I get it. It's pragmatic. There's practical reason, but counting people. I don't think it's good.
Another thing that worries me a lot is, as we were speaking before too, this technocracy, right? I don't know how much of Daniel Schmachtenberger and Tristan Harris you listen to.
I listened to a
They
good amount of Schmackenberger. I like him a lot.
Yeah, they talk about it. Really brilliant points about how algorithms are working within technological social media apps and how, these influences are so subconsciously put that it genuinely affects our own psyche. And so our behavior is changed. So if you psychologically, kind of like try to determine as to what's going on, there's a lot of loss and you're intaking information all the time, and the algorithms are working so nicely so that they can show you exactly what you want, exactly how you want it, and it then just becomes this place where you're so immersed in the social media app that the all of these social media apps are making bank out of it. Like and it's crazy because the algorithms are showing you what you want to see, but it's not showing you everything. If I want to see, let's say, some sort of left wing politics, right, then all my feed is going to be full of left wing politics, and I would have no idea as to what the right wing is talking about, right? And same goes, vice versa. So it's crazy how we see these kind of situations happening, because if this is not technocracy, what is it? And especially when Donald Trump sitting as a president was removed from Twitter, raised a lot of questions. Of course, he was removed from Twitter for one of the most righteous reasons. But at the same time, it's the removal of that, at that time, President of the United States from the internet, which is giving some sort of an authoritarian power to technocracy, and then this technocracy just coming into play. So it's dangerous that we're giving power to big tech companies, because again, they're private corporations, and all they want is benefits, and they're highly capitalistic in nature. And it's genuinely very, very worrisome as to exactly where we're headed with this algorithmic changing, algorithmic suiting kind of environment that the virtual reality tends to submit to us.
We're going several places for sure. We're going play. I just keep seeing that there's going to be pockets. This world is going to be a diverse menu of places, and I fucking hope and pray that it gets more accessible to move around, and not just accessible to move around in terms of like transportation being affordable and us just getting more effective at moving people, but also that like psychologically and governmentally and like, so I say psycho socially, or like socio-spiritually, that people just, that it's more realized across the globe that it's like, you can go somewhere where your way of life is supported and you're cheered on and have the resources to live this sort of life. And then also, if you want to dial in your reality, like I think that it's just going to be so, it's not going anywhere, that there's going to be people who are, there's going to be a different meaning, I think, of conservative as once the blast into transhumanism like really goes. Like when cyborg shit becomes commonplace, there's going to be, I'm sure there's going to be bunches of people who are like, not us. And so then like very like earthy, here we say hippies, very like like wanting to keep things natural, but natural is a weird word because like we're on an organically formed internet. You know, we're humans, we're biology, but we make these things that that some people, you know, just not wanting to participate in the gadgets and the gizmos and the things like social media platforms and stuff. I think there's going to be people, and it won't just be the like monotheists. It'll be secular people who are just like, I just don't want my life to become where there is like a video game HUD contact lens. Like every time I look, I also see this like this data being read. I just don't want to become. There are going to be people who don't want to become cyborgs, and then there's going to be places where people are loving cyborg life. I'm thinking, and then there's going to be the dark sides of that. There's going to be. I think that we have to find out. Probably going to find out at an excruciatingly slow and no shortage of Black Mirror-y moments and tragedies, like personal tragedies, like, oh my fucking God, this, I think we're going to find out what the cutoff point of extending life is. And I think that that's going to there's going to be both events and like an epoch. There's going to be a time where it was like, and we had to, as we say, fuck around and find out that, and I think we're going to find out all the ways in which a human soul can be stretched too thin, as it were. And I think that we're going to have very interesting, and sometimes I'm sure there'll be some pretty nightmarish moments where it's like you gave too much power to a person. And we're going to have more laws and bureaucracy about keeping people honest keeping people honest and trying to make them less dangerous with power and some of the power that the transhumanism will bring. I'm really excited to be able to like download understanding into my brain, like Matrix. You know, I know kung fu. Like to be able to just decide that I could program my brain with all of the tongues of China, and just go and be able to seamlessly speak Mandarin and Cantonese, and that's a 3-hour ordeal, as opposed to each one being years. You know, like, and just imagine being fluent in every language of the planet. Oh, that makes traveling a lot more interesting. But then also there could be dark sides to that too, because you might get these people who just like who uproot their lives to go to a completely different language world, and that makes them even more able to just like burn it down and walk away. Like go over here and like fucking lie to a bunch of it. Just like that. There'll be lots of new interesting ways for people to be dishonest and but also all the great stuff too. There's going to be people who are just like, I think there's going to be a lot of like people who weren't empowered before, because we're waking up from the nightmare of history. For what I see is like things. It used to be all about hard power, and now hard power is kind of fading out. It's changing form, but it's also kind of fading out. Like look at this right now. We're all like most of the world looks to the Russia Ukraine war as being the fault of one man who is seen as a fucking psycho at this point, or like a flailing madman, like, or just like a dying man trying to keep himself relevant. Like, and I think that there's a good chance that we see this, and then it becomes. I mean, we're moving away from hard power in a lot of ways, but then also there's something that's super utopian about my thinking that ends up like I'm really jumping the gun, because there's also pockets of the planet where it's all about hard power, you know. But I think that we're getting really close to disarming as a species, unless we fuck shit up real bad in the next 10 years.
Which is a probability.
There is a probability of that. There's also a probability of it being contained, though. No, it would be terrible, but there is the possibility of, like, because I think that I don't want to talk about nukes right now.
Well, let's end the podcast so we can talk about the U.S. situation.
Okay. You want to answer these questions first, real quick? Just during
Yeah.
the Detroit water crisis, it was celebrities who rented trucks and cargo planes to fill with fresh water and food to Detroit. During the pandemic in India, did the celebrities from Bollywood step in and hand out food and water to people the government couldn't get to?
Yeah, they did. And to be honest, it's mostly like a publicity stunt that these celebrities tend to do. Oh my God, I donated this, I donated that. And they have to always show off. So, one thing I absolutely admire is that if you really want to help someone, help them, but don't talk about helping them with everyone. Like, you help them and you're gone. I donate something. I don't have to tell like 7 people where I donated, that I donated to an organization. But here in India, with celebrities, if they are opening a charity or if they're donating something, they make sure that people are aware that they're doing it. It's another kind of publicity stunt. But yeah, the celebrities from Bollywood, the government people, everyone was providing food and water. Here we call it ration. To all of the people in India from the lower economic region.
There's one last one. This got to be the last one. Do you see a future where we are paid based on our social media costs? We would have to be connected to the grid 24/7, and the more ego conscious we are, we get some Bitcoin. The nicer we are to people, we get fractional income. It weeds out the bad people / the lazy people and rewards those who are obedient. Do you think that's gonna be?
That's an interesting question. I think there's already monetization already on social media, but this is an interesting question because it gives you an idea as to how this is going to work in future, and especially given the fact that now we have cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, as you mentioned. I think, yeah, people would become more conscious towards this and would be able to kind of get some sort of income, if not active, then passive income out of these situations. But again, it all depends as to how things are going to turn out. But I think it's definitely a probability.
Yeah, I think that several episodes of Black Mirror are just unavoidable. It's just and then it's like it's not all gonna be so bad, but there's, I don't know, the stuff about uploading consciousness, I think that's far off, but that's probably the most scary, is that you could get your actual consciousness experience locked into some loop. That would suck. God damn, that would suck. But things, I think, with the cyborg stuff, and just there's gonna be some weird medical things that just happen that you find out. Like, I think people's eyes are. It seems clear to me that people's eyes are being fucked up by how much we do screen time. Like, or the way it's affecting circadian rhythm and just your psyche, that so much of your existence takes place on this two-dimensional glowing thing. Like, I think that we haven't even really the jury's in on it as far as that it's on the aggregate bad, but we don't have the long term. I don't know, and I just think that has that reached its peak, or is it like that's a thing too that you just don't know about the future. When we try to talk about the future, we're like we or when the way we talk about the present, sometimes we think that things are coming to a head, but like they could be coming to a head for another 50, 100 year or hundreds of years, because people have been shaking their fist at whatever the newest technology is since trains. Like, slow down, come on, let's not. What are you gonna get? You just don't know. We might be at a time where we're nostalgic about how simple it was now. For sure, I could totally see that.
100%, I agree with you there. I think we're gonna be very, very nostalgic. Also, like when you look at like when we were kids, we only used to have like those flip phones, and now we have these bigger iPhones and whatnot. Like we're headed towards a very technological, advanced civilization. Becoming cyborgs is going to be transhumanism. So many things are coming in the future. But again, you really cannot timeline as to exactly when and how these things are going to happen. We know that these things are going to happen, but we don't have a structure around it. And the way to understand the structure is by making the structure as we go along with it. So, looking forward to seeing exactly how technological advancements turns out.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. There's a possibility of some exponential jump off point from certain. I mean, I'm really excited to see what more accessible and legal psychedelic use is gonna do for populations. Like, imagine just
Likewise.
yeah, more people who have a sense, but not to a narcissistic or like I am, in control sort of way. But when there's just more people who realize the potential to steer their consciousness experience, it's going to be interesting.
Very interesting indeed. I'm looking forward to how things are going to go. I think we're definitely going to get to AGI. I'm not sure about artificial superintelligence. Superintelligence would be apocalyptic for sure. Maybe not, but superintelligence seems to be apocalyptic. But artificial general intelligence would be so cool to have. It's like we have a mechanistic robotic friend who is on the same intellectual level as us. So we get to have these bot friends, so that, those kind of advancements are something that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, a lot of ways, and the alleviation of uh, obligations that are boring, low dopamine shit that is soul crushing across time for a human to perform. All that just being alleviated by robots. I'm here for it. I'm stoked. However, I'm a human being who needs to go to sleep. Yeah.
Well, then let's end this podcast because I want to talk about US with you.
Okay. All right. And we'll talk again soon. And happy reality.
Happy reality.
Good day to you. And good evening to me. All right. Happy reality.